Happy Q&A Tuesday! This year I'm doing Vlogmas because I'm a masochist. With that, that means that every Tuesday of Vlogmas, so the first 3 Tuesdays of this month, instead of just today, I'm going to be doing a Q&A. So if you have questions for next Q&A Tuesday, in which I will be talking about being an exchange student in Japan, leave those in the comments below. I am out in the woods on a beautiful 43-degree drizzly day. It really feels great. I'm not being sarcastic. So let's get to it. Okay, we'll start with the questions from Twitter first. At Vlogrim asks, what has been your most difficult project to take up in recent years? To clarify, I mean bad project managers, no resources, tight deadlines, the whole shebang. I've been blessed with really good project managers, actually. And as far as tight deadlines go, I mean, I'm aware of the deadline when I say yes or no, so if it's too tight a deadline, that's my fault, really. But if I'm gonna go with like a difficult project to work on, there was an anime series I did for Crunchyroll that just wasn't. It was like military sci-fi-ish, which just is not the kind of stuff that I watch, and it was kind of a style issue. The quality checkers kept like giving me corrections that were clearly subjective, and it's just really hard to follow what people want stylistically. And like every single week that I would submit my episode translation, I'd be like really worried and anxious that like I'd get chewed out for like really bad translations again, where it's mostly subjective, their opinions. Like I could kind of see some of what they were saying, like, yeah, good points. But yeah, that I guess was the hardest. It gave me the most like anxiety, the most grief. Ooh, my arm. Oh, that's kind of a nice angle though. We'll go with that. And another question from Twitter, at X_100-110. Great name. Have you been using cat tools since starting the tech translation? If not, do you wish you had? I need cat tools for anything remotely technical, otherwise I completely forget how I translated something 10 pages ago and consistency goes out the window. Yeah, like if I did translate tech stuff regularly, I would totally, hands down, use cat tools. For those of you who don't know, cat tools are computer-assisted translating tools, and I've actually only used MemoQ. I haven't used Trados or the others, but basically, if you come across like a chunk of text or a word that you've already translated before, the computer fills it in for you, basically. So it can be extremely useful for tech documents where the recent project I was translating, indeed, like there'd be the same paragraph repeated for like item 2 for every file within the project, like 10 times over. But I think I mentioned this in another video that with this project in particular, because it was my first tech one, I looked at it more as an opportunity to learn how to translate tech and also to learn vocabulary. So if I had been using cat tools, the computer just would have filled in. Like once I looked up a word once, it would have filled it in for me the rest of the time. So I wouldn't have really learned the word if I'd used the cat tools. So yeah, there was issues with like remembering how I translated something in the past. But again, like I appreciated that I had to remember how I translated something in the past because it helped me learn new vocabulary. And then my manager, who would, you know, do the final edit of these files for me, she had like a glossary set up, and we would both enter like how we were going to translate certain terms for consistency's sake. And then, I mean, there's copy paste and replace all functions in Word, like for entire paragraphs that I was just going to copy over. I would just do that or use replace all. And I don't know, I didn't really mind the manual aspects of it. But again, yeah, if I did tech regularly, I would totally use cat tools. Okay, now I have some questions from YouTube, because now I can finally make community posts. So Kevin Smile, very long question. Okay, I'm sorry for asking, but how to answer when someone asks you what your profession is and tries to say that it is not a real profession if you only translate one language, or if you tell them that you work from home. This is something I have experienced, so it always feels like you have to meet the person's expectations when they ask you what you do for a living. If they think a translator has to be polyglot, then you have to meet their expectations. I always feel like I have to prove myself. A friend that is an aspiring comedian said he is in the same boat when asked. I did touch upon this in another video, and if I remember, I'll put it in a card up there somewhere. If nothing's flashing next to my face, look in the description, it might be in there. But yeah, sadly, I notice it's a generational thing. Like young people, if I tell them I work at home or if I translate, they say, oh my God, that's awesome. I wish I could do that. Older people, however, if you're not like going to a job and sitting at a desk and working 9 to 5 and like getting a salary, they don't really consider that a job. And sadly, the only thing that convinces older people, usually I found, is just telling them, hey, I made almost $50,000 this year translating. I'm sad that that is what it takes to convince people, like that money somehow makes everything legit. But I mean, in a capitalist society, money makes everything move. So yeah, making money, making enough money to sustain yourself and not being a burden on society or your family or your friends or something. I mean, I feel even if you're sustaining your basic needs from your job and they still are giving you a hard time about it, then like fuck those people. It's like they're just not gonna get it, but eventually they probably will come around. As for the not being a polyglot, that means like knowing multiple languages. I've only gotten that like from other translators. I've caught subtle undertones of elitism. Like they're like, oh, you only do just one language pair, just Japanese to English. I do like 3 language pairs or whatever. I find it's really difficult to have more than one second language. I actually have translated a couple German things, German to English, because German was my first second language. Aber mein Deutsch ist nicht so gut. Und Deutsch interessiert mich nicht. But anyway, ooh, I'm moving around. It's hard doing this without a tripod. But yeah, as far as like, you know, not doing multiple languages and only having one language pair, all it really means is that you have fewer opportunities. It doesn't mean that you suck. I mean, also, especially if you're going to localize like I do, I suppose I could localize from German to English and Japanese to English, but I think there's absolutely no shame in like not going Japanese to English and English to Japanese. That's like a completely different thing if you're localizing, since you have to get like nuances of the language that you're translating into like super good. And yeah, I found this. I know a lot of people in the arts. I have a, you know, David, who's I did a couple videos with him. He's a spoken word poet, and he's actually making money and being relatively successful at it. But when he started out, of course, you know, everyone starts out like not making any money, and his family and friends and people kind of question, like, is this really a job? And I have friends who are, you know, aspiring models, actors, comedians as well, and they're at varying levels of success. And yeah, ultimately, if you are able to support yourself, or if you have, you know, a family or friends that super willingly help support you with absolutely no resentment whatsoever and no strings attached, then who really cares what other people think? But real talk, if you can't support yourself and if people are not understanding and you're having a hard time, it does make more sense to do this freelance work as a side thing instead of as a full-time thing. Timid asks, are there some differences between the way Japanese and Americans celebrate the holidays, such as Christmas? What was your experience? I actually recorded already, it's going to be uploaded in a couple days, a video about what Christmas was like in Japan for me, so look forward to that. And I think I'm going to do one about Japanese New Year's as well, since it's kind of on topic. But yeah, their take on Western holidays is interesting. They have adopted certain aspects of it, then they twist it, and then they get the idea from our movies and our TV shows, like how we celebrate Christmas, how we celebrate Valentine's Day. And I find that that's interesting because there's a lot of misconceptions. But yeah, but it goes both ways. Like, I remember from watching a bunch of anime and manga and all that, I thought Valentine's Day over there was a huge deal. I thought like everybody gave everybody chocolate. And I was gonna actually, make chocolate and hand it out to my classmates because I thought that's what you did. And I didn't have time, so I didn't do it. And I'm glad I didn't, because no one at my school, this is in the late 90s, maybe it's different now, but like nobody at my school gave anyone chocolate or did anything special for Valentine's Day. Yeah, and even like their traditional holidays, like Setsubun is one they celebrate, I think in February. It's, you throw beans out of the house and say, Oni wa soto, and then Fuku wa uchi, which means, away demons, and good fortune, come into the house. I have a feeling that's not even really a thing either. Like, my host grandma did that with me, but I could tell that she was sort of like, oh well, I should teach this foreign exchange student what Setsubun is because it's traditional Japanese, so let's just do this. The biggest deal, I'd say, like celebration wise in Japan, is their matsuri, like their local matsuri, which are the festivals in the streets, I find that those were a much bigger deal. Like their established holidays, I don't remember so much. Like Hinamatsuri, we just had like, a big shrine with a bunch of dolls, and that's it. It's just there, kind of like, it would be kind of like Christmas if Christmas was just reduced to the Christmas tree. That's Hinamatsuri. So yeah, I think all in all, their holidays are less than what I expected they would be. But that's because, my impressions of their holidays before came from movies, manga, anime. And of course that's going to be exaggerated because it's stories. Pico Blank asks, what do you think of ferrets? They're cute! Justin Skills asks, who makes more money, translators or interpreters? Depends on the job, depends on the subject matter, but I'd say generally speaking, interpreters make more money. And, from experience, I did one interpreting job. So much more difficult than translating. You have to do everything super fast in real time and go back and forth between the languages, so they deserve more money. Busan Boy asks, do you often have parts in anime that you can't translate because you don't know what they mean? Like if they use a thick and unique dialect or slang phrase that doesn't show the definition online? If so, how do you overcome it? Honestly, I can't say it happens to me really at all anymore. I always have a Japanese transcript to translate from. The only time that I ever have to do anything by ear, sort of, in anime is when they make changes in the script, because they'll handwrite those changes in, and their handwriting is super sloppy, and I can't look it up that easily. But even then, I find I can find pretty much any slangy word or phrase online. I don't type it into Google Translate. I just type it into Japanese Google, and then I look up the explanation and definition in Japanese, and I can get it from there. Back in the olden days, though, like before I always had transcripts to work off of, and before the internet was so big, I would frankly just give it my best guess. Thankfully, none of those were professional. That was just like on my website. So again, I am doing Q&A Tuesdays for the next 2 Tuesdays after this. Next Tuesday, I'm going to be answering questions about my experience as a Japanese exchange student. I'm going to be doing like a whole series of videos on being an exchange student in Japan, or studying abroad in Japan, or living in Japan. And any questions you have about that, leave them down below, or I'll ask for them later through community post and my Facebook and my Twitter. Or you can email them to me. Also, gonna continue to pimp. I am selling a bunch of manga, anime merch, and amigurumi in my eBay. The link is in the description. See you tomorrow! Oh my god, my arm.